and Planet Bedtime Story. Plus, also, spoiler alert, I'm also going to include the post-regeneration scene in this list in some way. You'll see soon. Before we begin, we have but before we begin, I also have, and I'm gonna be. Just give me a sec. That was my notifications buzzer being turned off. Don't worry about that, future me. So, this honourable mention. So the honourable mention. So yeah, the honourable mention is going to be the post-regeneration scene from Power of the Doctor. So more on that in a sec. But yeah, I just got. And for this, it's not very one specific scene, but it's more like a bit of the episode. The Star Beast. Oh yeah, yeah. So more or less, kind of not quite. I mean, they're not awful, but mostly because we're focusing on the character of the 14th Doctor as well as and not just scenes that he's in, but partially because whilst these scenes are scenes that feature the 14th Doctor, because the character has so many good ones, most of these ones will either specifically focus on the character or having him take part in a larger moment of the scene, as opposed to the Meta Crisis safeguard code sort of ties into that. But yeah, I think but that wouldn't have happened if he wasn't being as reckless. So I think it's worth a mention. Shout out to Jenny from the Hooniverse. Shout out to Jenny from the Hooniverse. Meanwhile, with the Star Beast getting a Doctor on. But suffice to say, but that's all. But that's a video for another time. But that's a video for another time. We're doing this one first, and I think this scene has just gone down, as a legendary scene because of the regenerations, as much as the bi-regenerate. The first Doctor into the second Doctor is probably the most notable because, for me, when I saw the animation of Power of the Daleks, I thought the second Doctor just kind of kept some of the first Doctor's clothes and didn't just swapped out some other bits for the ones that we know and love him to be wearing as his main costume. The trousers being specifically looked like the ones that he'd as a holdover from the first Doctor, although adjusting them to be with the braces. But also the shirt just swapping out for the bow tie and then putting on more of a blazer than the first Doctor's coat thing, and then swapping out the coat for the blazer that he wears. Yeah, and also the shoes, I guess. But yeah, Power of the Daleks animation. But I think also the original story just didn't focus too much on the costume change. It's only really when we get to the third Doctor that is where we start to see where he actually gets his clothes. I mean, we saw some of that in Power as well, but a full costume change for Pertwee and onwards for the most part. So I heard that there was something on Peter Davison's Fifth Doctor where he somehow kept some of Tom Baker's clothes into his own costume, or some of his own new ones appeared out of nowhere. So I'm not sure how true that is. Depending on how many minutes, we're going to get to another moment later down, or rather moments, because again later on it's so many moments. But yeah, that scene felt. But I'm going to go with the court is now in session. I mean, if the actual post-regeneration story is the Doctor Who comic. So don't worry, don't feel too left out about all that. So don't worry, you're not being left out about this whole post-regeneration or regeneration story being expanded media stuff. Anyway, so yeah. Anyway, they mentioned this technically called the before we sadly have to say goodbye for them. I suppose that's just the toy maker in 1925. Stan was minus the opening, which also does count as a possible honourable. But yeah, anyway, but not to this. Not much more to say other than this massive Also, it's really memeable. Well, that's all right then. And now, number one. Time to move. And finally, we get to number one. Time to bring the mood straight back down. And now we get to number one. Now, we had a and now we get to number one. Now, I'm going to bring the mood straight back until he's started not to be as much, because he turned his attention to the beep. Until he wasn't as much, because he then turned his attention to the meep. And I think Russell D. Davies managed to carry that over into 14 and maybe even 15, and adoptive as the whole to do with the time, as Flux is basically going to. And yeah, these are the scenes that also define. So yeah, in fact, I personally think and I might cut that bit. Number 4 is this court is now in session from Wild Blue Yonder. No, it's not. It's the Star Beast from the Star Beast. Excuse me. Oof. Possibly even making her, and maybe not so much the guest incarnations in Power, but certainly for the main incarnation. That era. So yeah. But yeah. But throughout the scene, instead of actually helping, I don't know what it is with the flashback editing in these episodes. They just feel so weak, and the same. You would think at least one of them would be interested in one of the two doctors would be interested to find out why don't one or the other of us remember the other. So why doesn't? I was going to tie in with another mention. Now I'm going to tie. I didn't really want to put that second TARDIS scene. I didn't really want to put either of the TARDIS scenes from Fugitive or the Jadoon as an honourable mention. The first one, I suppose, kind of counts with another mention that's coming up later on the list. No. So yeah, I'll talk a bit more about these scenes. You probably just like the honourable mention and another mention later on. But this is the big my is, and some of the personality in Fugitive specifically, but again, this is the polar opposite of what I was talking. Again, this is the polar opposite of the 14th Doctor, from as shown in my previous video. I've talked about. I think 4 is probably fine. Especially since we have fucking pandemic on. And don't moan any. moving away from the controversy, or moving away from the mega controversial, that has nothing to do with Ruth Clay. Basically, when she reveals herself as, again, it's been nearly 4 years. 12 Doctors here and 11, 10 and 11, 12 and 11. And this is probably the best time. Take out the fact that Fugitive is living a memory, as the Fugitive Doctor mentions, and that ties in with the start of episode 1, Once Upon. So it sets up their relationship a bit, but he is aware of the flux at least. So maybe just this time might be Anyway, so, and for this specific scene we're talking about, the Fugitive Doctor, to distract the Master, the Master. And in this specific scene, in the Winter Palace, 1916? I think it was 16. Yeah, 1916, Russia. So, in St. Petersburg, I believe. In St. Peter, awkward dialogue, maybe some. It's not perfect, but it's at least a good ending. Or it's not yeah, it's just that's, other than that and the reveal, there really isn't that, other than that, the same for the Master, the Call Me, with the Sacha Dhawan Spy Master one. Then trust me, I've done video. If not, I recommend you check out my videos on the Universals about. Although it was great, however, was able to at least get 2 main men, or maybe I. Don't forget to click below to subscribe to the Nicholas Payne bonus content YouTube channel.